The Baggies take on the Potters in the third game of the league season. Of course, both teams dropping points in Matchday 2, so which one of them will look to bounce back and get 3 points on Saturday, we'll have to see. So let's preview our opponents, looking at their key threats and predicting who might be in Stoke's starting lineup. Now, it's always an interesting fixture when we take on the Baggies. Of course, in the Championship, it's always a closely contested affair, not too much to separate the sides, and when Stoke have been in the Championship, they've played against the Baggies in the league 10 times, with 5 of them going the way of West Brom, who took the 3 points. 3 times it has, of course, been a Stoke win, and twice it has been a draw, and them 2 draws, of course, came last season, and a 1-1 away from home at the Hawthorns, where, of course, Lyndon Gooch got that kind of fluky goal. Did he mean it? I don't think he did, but he might say he did. And then, of course, when they came our place, we came from 2 goals behind to, of course, settle the score and get a point on the board, where, of course, it was much needed. Now, look at last season and how both teams did. Of course, West Brom were up there in the playoffs, but obviously didn't manage to get to the playoff final, compared to Stoke, who were, of course, were in a relegation battle. So they had 2 total different seasons, but come this fixture, it could go either way, and I think really isn't too much to separate the sides. I really don't. I think if you look at it last season, one of their stand-up players was, of course, Brandon Thomas Asante, and he's transferred to Coventry now, so will they be as much of a threat as they were last season? I'm not too sure. We'll have to see. They definitely have a lot of quality in their side. Now, predicting the score for this game is one of them that's absolutely impossible. It could go absolutely anywhere. It's one of them where you don't want to base Stoke's performances or the result or the prediction off the performances that Stoke have had in the 2 league matches. Of course, 2 totally different games. Against Coventry, a real battling 1-0 win. We got over the line, we got the 3 points, and then against Watford, it looked like it was going to be something similar in that first half. Could go either way, and then a second half display of goals for Watford, of course, and sealed the deal, and they showed their quality. So in this one, I think it is about who can kind of, over that 90-minute period, stay focused, not stay dominant, because I think there will be chances either way. I think that both teams will get on the score sheet. I think it is just a matter of who will get over the line. And I think with us being at home and with us having that quality back in the side, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Potters. Look at the past seasons that Stoke and West Brom have had in comparison to each other, and of course West Brom's is much better. Of course, last season being in the playoffs, and then the season before that, of course, being 9th, the top half finish, which Stoke haven't managed to do in the 6 seasons that they've been in the Championship. So you look at it and you would say that, of course, West Brom have had kind of a better season in the Championship over the past few years, but when you look at it in a way, there's never too much to separate us. There's quality on both sides, and kind of there's a similarity in not in styles, but in the type of players that both teams have. And of course, in the game on Saturday, there will be a lot of battle, and maybe it'll be a case of who's going to turn up and who's going to be up for the game. And hopefully, with us being at home, that'll kind of get the players and the fans together. So hopefully it will be 3 points against the Baggies. But you look at Carlos Corberán, of course, since he came in on October in 2022, and he's had a huge impact. He really has. He's one of the top managers in the league. And of course, you look at his record and what he's done since coming in from the club, and of course, 9th and 5th in the league is something that West Brom would love to have. And I think obviously he wants to build that continuity, that momentum for this season, so that they're right up there. But sometimes you can have a real good season and then all of a sudden you lose the players and that momentum goes. So could they maybe have a bit of an off season? I'm not too sure. Of course, they have a lot of quality there, but there's a lot of quality in other sides that maybe are going to be ahead of them this season, and hopefully that's us. But I'd definitely take a top half finish, and I don't think West Brom fans would. I think they're aiming for the playoffs, for the automatic. So it's one of them where obviously either side do have different targets for this season, but there's still quality. There's still a link up and a comparison of quality there that's very similar. You look at it, I think Corberán is a key factor for them. I think if they were to lose him, I think that would be massive. I think his style of play, what he brings to the table, the quality that they've got on the pitch, it could be a real threat. But also, I think in this fixture, it could go either way. But of course, as I mentioned about keeping that continuity, keeping that momentum for a next season after, of course, losing out on the playoffs, that's where you want to keep your core squad, your core players that you know you can rely on. And of course, a couple of players have left West Brom, key players that maybe were key in the games that they played against Stoke. Like I said about Thomas Asante, Yukushlu, another one, Townsend as well. All players that have now left that might have an impact on how the team does this season. Of course, key players. Yes, Thomas Asante brought the goals, but you also have someone leading the line. It is someone that is key that obviously you can rely on for the goals. And they may have that this season with a former Potter who got a hat-trick in West Brom's opening game of this season was Josh Maja. And of course, a former Potter didn't get the goals that Stoke fans would have liked and he would have liked when he was here at the club, but of course got a hat-trick against QPR. And could he be a threat? If a player is getting on the score sheet, however it happens, like however the goals go in, you don't mind. So will he be able to continue that form? If he knows where the back of the net is, surely he'll be able to continue it. And now, when we previewed our opposition before, we always talk about the creative players, the players that might get the opposition going and get them playing some nice lucrative football that of course Corberan likes to play. And one of them is John Swift, of course, used to be at Reading, then signed for West Brom a couple of seasons back. He's just such a creative player, and I think Stoke would have loved him in our squad, but I think we're kind of filling that role now. Looks like we've got our creative player of our own, a lot of them in all fairness. But you look at John Swift, what he brings to the table, that creativity. He knows where the back of the net is, but he also knows how to link up with the wide men and get in there. And I think in terms of midfield and in the battles, of course Jordan Thompson did a fantastic job against Radoni, who's another one that's a key player and will be a key player for Coventry. It will be a case of something similar in the game on Saturday. I really do. I think if he gets on the ball and allows to work his magic and get creative, then he could be a real threat. And you look at how he did last season, he'll look to better that this season, of course, with the players that he's got around him, the likes of Dion Garner as well, who's come off the bench the last 2 times in the league as well. So you look at it and he's got the creative players with him. He really has. There's wingers there that are really creative and could be a threat against Stoke. But I picked out Maja and Swift as creative players, but also ones who have got the quality there, but will they show it against Stoke? That's then another question. And I think the lineup that Stoke might bring out could do well to make sure that they don't do that. Now, predicting Stoke's lineup every week is always a tricky one. You're never going to know who's going to come in, who's injured, and who might not feature, or maybe is just going to be on the bench until the latter stages of the game. But in this one, I am going to say that there's going to be changes, but I don't think there'll be too many changes if I'm being totally honest. I think it's one of them where, of course, we've come off the back of a 3-0 loss to Watford, but you look at the first half display compared to the second half, obviously it's 2 total different games. So it's one of them where you don't want to make changes because, these players didn't have a good game, they shouldn't be in there. Of course, they had a great game against Coventry and really turned up, and obviously we got a hard-fought 1-0 win. This is another hard-fought game against a side that are going to be up there this season. So do you have to make too many changes? So looking at our goalkeepers, of course, Victor Johansson in between the sticks, of course, the number one who you'd have there. So it's one of them where I think in this game there will be chances for either team. It's maybe a case of who's going to put it in the back of the net and who isn't. And I think Johansson is going to get a lot of plaudits from this game. I think he'll really keep us in the game. And if it's another 1-0 win, you probably say that Victor Johansson has done his job superbly as a shot stopper. Looking at our back four, and I don't think you would make any changes to it as well. You look at the 2 centre-backs of Ben Wilmot and Ben Gibson, and you say that there is a solidity and a structure there, and hopefully that can stay like that for the season. I think when you look at it with Johansson behind them, that kind of strong kind of solidity, a bit more structure, that experience as well, hopefully that works well for us in this season. Now, of course, against Watford, we were a little bit open at times, but it really was a case of, it went from one half where there wasn't too much between both sides to then a second half where Watford really turned up the pace, came out of the block, and of course tore us apart and got 3 goals. So it's one of them where I wouldn't make changes. I don't think there is too many changes that is on offer for Schumacher anyway, but I think there is definitely a solidity there that, of course, during this championship season we will see more of. Fullbacks wise as well, Eric Bocat on the left with Junior Chamadou on the right. I think it'll be another case of wingers that could be a real threat. Look at who West Brom have, the likes of Dion Garner, Lewis Dobbin. Could Corberan look to make changes as well? Of course, they've got Carlon Grant, who's been playing off the right, Tom Fallows, who's another tricky winger who I reckon will start and will, of course, provide a tough test for Chamadou. But I think over this period, over this season, he really will show his quality. I really do think he will. I think Chamadou is a real solid player, and against Coventry, he proved that. I think against Watford, they turned up the heat as a whole we were kind of exposed in a way, and of course Watford put the ball in the back of the net, and we looked far too open against a side that of course punished us. So against West Brom, there'll still be a threat. I think there will be a lot of quality, but I think with it being a home game, we'll be strong, and hopefully this time we can play on the front foot, have the ball, be comfortable in possession, and then of course keep it for the whole 90, so that we go into a second half with a nice lead, and then it's just a bit of a structured and kind of experienced performance to see the game out against a team that of course will have a lot of quality that hopefully they don't threaten us with. Moving on to the midfield, I'm going to put it as a bit of a double pivot, so two kind of defensive-minded players with one more attacking player ahead of them, more of a 4-2-3-1. So I'm going to put Jordan Thompson and Josh Laurent as the two more sitting players in this game. I think they both provide that quality, both in the attack and in the defence. And I think maybe replicating the formation that, of course, Corbrand's side will play will probably help us as well. And it's a case of who's going to win their individual battles. And I think Jordan Thompson and Josh Laurent for this game especially could be key for it. Now in that, I'd also play Moran as well as the more advanced player, a bit more attacking. We've seen a lot of what he could bring to the table, and hopefully he can show that in his, of course, home debut in front of the Stoke fans. So hopefully we of course have that mixture and balance of being defensive and not kind of looking as open as we were in that second half against Watford, but also having that creativity to get up the pitch. Now in that midfield, of course, I've said that Berger will be on the bench, and there's nothing against him. I think he's got a real quality. We know what he brought to the table last season where he was really key. I'm just doing that. I think Moran will come into the side. It's just a case of who would you drop out of Laurent and Berger in terms of a more advanced midfielder, and I just think based off of course Berger coming off in the second half on both games that we've had in the league, I'm going to put that he might be dropped. It could be that he's just kind of nursing an injury and you just don't want to risk it, so I'm going to say that he drops out for Moran, who's going to play in that more advanced role. And then looking at our attack to face the Baggies, and we have a bit more options than we did against Coventry. A few more players that could play there, and it could be anyone. It really could. It's one of them where you don't know who's kind of getting that opportunity and who's showing what they're made of in training. I think Emre Tezgah will start up top. Of course, Sam Gallagher still out. Niall Lennis wasn't in the matchday squad against Watford, so is it that he's maybe nursing an injury, or is he possibly going out the door? I'm not too sure. The only other one apart from Tezgah is of course Ryan Mai, who of course played in the under-21s game, so I think he's still building up that fitness, still working up that kind of match fitness that he needs to be in that, of course, the first team and play in a way a full 90 or at least start the game. So I think Tezgah will keep his place, deservedly so. I think he's a player that's still learning about the game. It's just a case of can he get more chances, can he get the opportunity, and I think with the players that he's got alongside him, they could definitely provide that, and hopefully he gets on the score sheet against the Baggies. As I mentioned, the two wingers that will provide the creativity in this team, and hopefully if we play on the front foot and if we get on the ball, then these two could be a real threat to the West Brom backline. And I'm going to put Million Manhoof on the right. Of course, rumour that he could have possibly been leaving with the link of Leeds, but I don't know how true that is. Hopefully he isn't, because he's a real threat, and hopefully he can show that against West Brom, and I think he'll be given the time and the space to hopefully work his magic. And then over on the left hand side, he could possibly play in that number 10 role. I'm not too sure, but with him coming on against Watford after being injured for a couple of weeks, it's of course Bae Jun-ho. Hopefully he's in the starting lineup, and of course we know what he brings to the table. He works his socks off, he works his magic, and he's absolutely superb. So hopefully if he's able to work his creativity, then of course we will look a real threat. Now if it isn't Jun-ho and it is more a case of with him coming back from injury, you don't want to give him that 90 or that first start straight away so that he can build his fitness up as well. You'd probably say that Luis Kumas will probably come into the side if it wasn't for Jun-ho. In this case, I think with the Middlesbrough game coming up on Tuesday in the Cup, I think he'll then be given his chance then, and I think Jun-ho will come in for this league game. So you look at that as a front three, there's some real quality there to threaten a West Brom backline. So there we have it then. That's the lineup I'm going to go for. Let me know what you guys think. I might have got it totally wrong, but last week, of course, I did get it right by saying we wouldn't make any changes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. I think it'll be an interesting game. It'll be a game that, like Coventry, there'll be a lot of fans in there for. I think there'll be a great atmosphere, and hopefully there's a good result as well. So unlike last season, hopefully we get the 3 points this time. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.